Welcome back to our show. All right, the year was 1967. 5 teenage friends got lost in the Blue Mountains parking. One of the largest manhunts in Jamaican history took place. And here to tell us all about that adventure is Mr. Geoffrey Haddad, one of the lost boys. Well, start from, let's go beginning. How you got lost in the first place? Because this story made major headlines. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we were not going on the trail. 17 adventurous boys at Jamaica College in 1967. The trail was for sissies.
The trail was for what?
Sissies.
Oh.
Yes. I mean, we wanted to be adventurous, so we decided to start probably about 10 miles as a crow flies from Chincona. But if you were to take into account the up and downs, it may be closer to 15 miles. And we had heard about this trail, that it existed some 30 years ago. Whether it was going to be existing at that time, we don't know. It was a mythical trail when we took off. And I was not part of the original 5 boys. I heard these boys talking about going to the peak at Jamaica College. I'd never been there. But I'd been a bird bushman and a Cub Scout and with my dad for many years, from 4 years old. And I heard Blue Mountain Peak, so I said, could I come? They said, I'm very sorry. We have 5 on one more, we want too many. That night, one of the boys got sick, and they called and said, we're leaving tomorrow.
So the 5 of you just decided to have a...
I had nothing to do with the planning.
Oh, so the plan was for 5 of you to go hiking in the Blue Mountains?
Yeah, but you only got in the plan because somebody got sick before.
Right, but I did inquire, and they said, sorry, we can't come. But the same night, they called and said, we have a meeting tomorrow morning at Jamaica College, which was the 15th of December, and we're leaving on the 16th. So I had to go back home and hide from my dad. I couldn't let him go. So, but I had to tell somebody what I was doing. So on my little street on Windsor Avenue, Kingston there, I went down to my neighbor next door and I explained to him, I said, Robin, this is what we're doing. Don't tell my father. And the last words to Robin, which were never rehearsed or premeditated or whatever you want to say, were, if I'm not back by Wednesday.
Which is the topic of a book that we'll be talking about. Which day were you leaving?
We're leaving on Saturday, but this is the Saturday morning at noon. I'm supposed to be at Gordon Cooper's, one of the boys' father's home. He was taking us up to Clydesdale. And I said to him, if I'm not back by Wednesday, and the last words were, call out the army.
And you said that quite jokingly?
No, I guess,
you maybe were being a little prophetic. And
maybe. As I said, I never thought of them before I went there.
Right. So we want to hear about the experience. So the 5 of you went hiking, I suppose is the word you
right.
call it.
Yes, and we took enough food and water for 4 days because we thought that was enough.
So was there somebody guiding the 5 of you as 5 young teenage boys?
No, there's no trail.
No trail?
No. The plan was to hike from Sincona across the valley up onto the Blue Mountain Ridge. And theoretically, if you stayed on the ridge, you'd go past these various stations, Sir John's Peak, Main Ridge Gap, Mossman's Peak.
So was there one of you who knew what the route was?
Well, the uncle of one of the boys claimed that 30 years ago, that route existed.
Oh, so you took a mythical route.
You took a mythical route as a rebel. A set of rebels.
5 adventurous teenagers.
It sounds good to now call it adventurous.
Invincible.
You were rebels who didn't want to take the sissy route.
Right.
So you took the rebel mythical route.
We took the outlawed path.
And get lost.
So when we took enough food and water for 3 days, and when we got to Main Ridge Gap, we saw the peak and we realized we could not make it. In December 1967, with the wind blowing and the raging rains and so on, the temperature on the ridge, most people don't know, is below 0. So we're out of food and water, and at Main Ridge Gap, the map showed a trail back to Kingston, a sort of a shortcut, just in case we ran into trouble. So we're looking for this trail. That morning, the wind was whirling, there's fog, we couldn't see anything, and we found what looked like a little track. So we followed this track, and it became a little stream. So now we have water. But when we looked up, we're 1,500 feet the Blue Mountain Ridge. So are we going to go back up there? No, we're going to follow this stream. The stream became a river. Well, all rivers flow to the sea, or a town. Which town? It doesn't matter. But this river was flowing north. That means we are not on the south side of the Blue Mountain Ridge. We're in an area in Portland described as inaccessible as anywhere in the world where no man has ever trodden. So we're following the river. What happens when you come to a 200-foot waterfall? Do we go on this hillside or that hillside? We did that for 3 days. At the end of each day, we climbed to the top of whatever the hill was. Nothing, no berries, no birds, nothing to eat. And so up to the top of the hill every afternoon and slept there, screamed our voices out, no dogs, no human beings, nothing. Back to the river the next day. What happens when the river becomes 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet? Should we go on this bank, that bank? We did that for 6 days. Now we're out of food. we're down to 3 or 4 grains of raw rice and some toothpaste. And by some miracle, on the 21st of December, we ended up in a fern patch. The only fern patch in the entire mountainside. The probability of it existing is 1 in 1.1 million. The probability of it existing, us not knowing, and arriving there, infinity.
There's a photograph there. Can we see that again? That's the photograph.
The only 2 photos depicting the almost
Impenetrable terrain. Those weren't you. That photograph is not.
That's me in a white cap.
That's you in the white cap.
And that, if you notice down by my waist, there's a water bottle, which my father, he didn't want to see me when I was leaving. He made my mother take me out.
Right.
He said, she said to me, your father says this is a water bottle and you need to take an extra bottle because you never know what can happen to you in the bush. And if I just go back 1 second, before we left, the lead of the party called my house a Friday night and my father answered the phone. I was out. So it kind of gave him an idea, but not, of course, not the total picture.
Right.
And the last words my father to the lead of the expedition were, promise me. No, he says, first of all, this will be a trip you will never forget. Secondly, promise me that if you run into any type of forest or woodland, you would not cut through it, you would turn back.
Whoa. So who took this picture?
One of the boys.
One of the boys. All right. So now you're you're there for what? 8, 9, 10 days now?
This is before we were with
No. I'm saying you were telling the narrative.
Right. So we're now at day 6.
Day 6
And we end
no food. And you find a fur.
You're down to rice.
We're
and
into this
toothpaste.
miracle. And we decide that we're not leaving here because we've climbed the tree and we can see the north coast. And for 3 days, at 10,000 feet, we're watching planes and helicopters on the ridge, 5-6 miles away. But they're not coming over to the north side.
Whoa.
And we decided we're now out of food and water. And we decided on a Saturday, the 23rd of December, we got a fire going for the first time because it rained incessantly. And we decided each person would sleep with a piece of firewood, a log. And on Saturday morning, the 24th of December, if it was necessary, we were going to burn the mountainside down.
Oh.
We had by now, two fellas had climbed the tree. They were able to see the north coast, and by taking various readings on our compass, where the ridges were and the rivers, we were able to pinpoint exactly where we were. But so what? What are we going to do? It's 2,500 feet vertical to the Swift River below. Had we attempted to go down there, certainly we would not have made it. And once we went back into the bush, it would have been impossible. The tree canopies that were there, they're sometimes just 15 minutes in the day when we could see the sun. So we're now...
And the temperature for these days, during the daytime, normal?
A little bit
During the
about,
nighttime?
like, I'm talking about centigrade, so maybe like 10 degrees. It's cold for, in Kingston at that time. I guess ladies during the Christmas time would probably have on a sweater. Right. But it was an unusually cold winter. And with the wind, we're talking about the wind chill factor from the, from the northeast wind, we're talking about below 0. Down in the valley, sometimes it'd be cold just because of the dripping rain, the condensation from tree leaves and so on. So we're in this fern patch, and 24th of December, 1967. I'd had some major incidences up there. I was hitting my back, and I fell off a tree and got hung up off a cliff and got hung up in a tree, and there are other incidences. So here we are in this fern patch, and we decided we're going to do this, but we're not leaving this fern patch ever. So now we're down to 3 or 4 grains of raw rice and some toothpaste and a little bit of water in one of the canteens. And at 8:45 on December 1967, one of the aircraft, his last transmission to the tower in Kingston was Palisados, Juliet Delta Yankee at 9,500 feet, Portland. Returning to Palisados, no sign of missing boys.
Whoa. By now, there was a massive manhunt for you all.
Oh, yeah, the entire island was looking for us.
Can we say there's one of the headlines, 5 boys missing on hike to Blue Mountain Peak. So these were the headlines that were coming out at the time.
Right, and then this was the one on Christmas, on 24th of December.
I don't know if our camera can pick this one up.
But
Ireland search for missing boys. I tell you.
Yes. And this is the paper of Christmas
24th
Eve.
of December. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just to point out, I mean, it's a very important.
Hold on, can we just hold it up? Yeah. Boy, I tell you, Mr. Haddad. There we go. Ireland search for
if
missing
you look
boys.
at the end of this, there is Mr. Haddad himself at the end.
This is you.
At the bottom.
The bottom.
Oh, the bottom,
right.
yes.
So can you imagine being my mother and opening up the newspaper on that day? By that time, she had gone into hiding because she refused to answer the phone. People called and told them that they heard on the news we'd been found. The very forest ranger who saw us go into the bush, when they went to find him, he said, we came back out of the bush. A shopkeeper nearby said we slept there. All rumors. So the platoons of soldiers and policemen, they're strapped all over the island. They were spread.
How long were you in there for?
almost 10 days.
Almost 10 days.
Yeah, so this plane turns, it spots us. By that time, our ears are, we're not sure if it's a plane. We're not sure if it's a helicopter because, you know, you wake up at night and there are mosquitoes in your eardrums. And so we saw this plane coming towards us and then we didn't see it. So we turned to each other. Did you hear the plane? Are you sure it wasn't a helicopter? And 2 minutes later, Mr. Jackie Bisco, the island's only aerial photographer at the time, shot over the top of the tree. He opened the window, cut the engine and said, stay where you are.
Oy.
What followed after that was one of the most dramatic helicopter rescues in history. Captain Bonnie Stern piloted down his helicopter through this opening in the trees. There were many times when the rotor blade hit the trees, and there's a photograph taken by one of the boys who was in the tree that shows the helicopter could not land. So,
This way, right?
the other way.
The other way.
The other way.
Yeah. See, helicopter.
And
you
so-
can catch it.
And so to get into the helicopter, Sergeant Hall had to hold the skid of the helicopter. In the meantime, Captain Bonnie Stern is trying to steady it. The tail rotor is within inches of the ground, and the main rotor is hitting trees. And so to get in there, we had to climb on the soldier's foot onto the shoulder and climb in. And there's a dramatic photograph in the book that shows a color photograph, one of the boys climbing in. So I don't know if you're going to be able to find it, but it's probably, yes,
Is
we
it
probably,
marked in this?
no, it's not marked, but we could probably find it a little later on.
So you've decided to write a book after, what, 50 years?
No. No. About 2 months later, I decided I'm going to write a story. And I was going to print maybe 200 or 300 copies and give it to friends and family.
Right.
I've written this story maybe 40 times. So the first time I wrote it, my diary is not here. It was handwritten, and neatly handwritten, and better handwritten, and so on and so forth. And then I got my sister to type it on a mechanical typewriter. That was 1970 probably. And then it went to floppy disk, and so on. So it went to IBM Selectric typewriters, maybe too far back for you gentlemen to remember, IBM Selectric, then floppy disk, and now we're into regular computers. And so I have this story now, and it's now in a manuscript form. And I come to Jamaica because I've heard of the famous Mr. Hartley Nita, who wrote a book, The Search, which was about the 5 JC boys who were lost in 1939. But they walked to the peak and they tried to cut through the jungle to Port Antonio. But they were lost, they walked out. But in those days, the only form of communication in Jamaica was homing pigeons.
Oh, Lord.
If I'm not back by Wednesday.
This book is a must read.
Can you-
because
can we
just
catch
hearing
it
the adventure.
again? What I need to ask, though very peculiar, I noticed you have your compass there and your water bottle, the canteen at the time, and all these pictures. You've made the headlines. What happened when you finally reach home? And here's family and everybody.
So
says,
we have no
Geoffrey.
we have no idea of what's happening. The only thing we know is that the helicopter pilot drops us a note in his own handwriting here and tells us to cut as much bush for helicopter, right? And landing later on. And later on, my dad.
Did he drop this note to you?
They dropped a box of food, and in the box of food were these 2 notes.
And here's the note, people. That was, and this is the handwriting.
This is
Are you all right? We have a patrol in the area. Stay where you are. Our patrol will guide you. Do you need water? Cut as much as possible for helicopter later on.
So
this is before the helicopter came back. They dropped you that.
and told us, yeah. But can you imagine when we saw this note, our patrol will guide you out. We're saying, are we that close to a trail? We have no energy. I went there, I weighed 110 pounds. By that time, I was down to 95 pounds. And these are the notes my dad wrote to himself when he was the one who started the search. If it wasn't for him, I don't know what would have happened, because my friend finally delivered to my dad on Tuesday evening. We're supposed to be back on Wednesday. He says, Mr. Haddad, I'd like to tell you something. And when my dad heard it, he went to the army, he called out the police, he called out schoolmasters. He had envelopes with my photograph in there and dispersed them all through Jamaica and everything. So he's now at the JDF and he gets a message that the boys have been found. And so he writes this message. He documents everything. And if I were not like him, I would not have any of this documented.
Here's what I want to know. So after all that, you came home. What did he say to you?
So I'm back from the, so this is taking place now. Here we are at the JDF. That's my dad. He's kind of ashamed, but he's very happy. When I came we were driven from the airport there. And when this is my mom, she held on to me there.
Which one is you?
In the red.
So that's you in the red there?
And my mom, and she's held on to me for no less than 5 minutes and said, do you know that I'm your mother? Are you really Geoffrey?
Oh my God.
Looking straight into my eyes. So
because by now Jamaica had pretty much said You're not just lost. You guys are
Well,
dead.
that's speculation, right? Because we're
Right.
now gone 9 days. Gone 9 days, and so then my dad, all he said to me there was rest.
That's it.
But before I went, my mom drove me out, and she was saying on the way to Mr. Cooper's house, I think your dad should really take you. Why don't you go back? Because if anything happens to you, I'm going to be the one to be blamed. So for weeks, and then maybe up to 30 years after, Christmas time, the memories are still there, very vivid. In fact, the first 2 or 3 years, I would wake up at night and just pray that I would not see a star.
Whoa.
This must have had a very serious effect on you individually. And I mean, as friends, yes, I guess as boys, you come back to a school at Jamaica College, boarding and all of that at the time, and there's all these stories to be told, but psychologically, and the trauma of it, how you managed
Very
to get past
distraught,
that?
and I will never forget the day we went back in January at Jamaica College, and the headmaster, Mr. Middleton, admonished us in front of the school and made us look like fools.
Really?
Some people thought that we never did it. It was just a complete fake. And then how did we get rescued on a ridge like that? So we were stupid boys. Most people didn't understand the story. They thought we were going on the regular trail to the peak, which is just 14.5 miles, and that we were so stupid we got lost. Well, obviously that was not the case. As I said, there were people in Negril that saw us playing tennis. Some people up at Newcastle saw us playing something else. And then as far as Montego...
Everybody had a story.
Rumors flying.
Rumors.
left, right, center.
But by and large, country people are not. Even if the forest ranger, they don't mean any harm. What really happens is that they're hoping that we'll be found in that area and they will become a part of the story. That's what it's all about. It's not that they're trying to be.
This is the makings of
Understand?
a full-length
There should be a movie about it. Understand that you have a book launch talking about.
Yes, this is going to book launch. It's the first launch. I've come all the way from Vancouver, Canada, to launch this book at Jamaica College on Friday, and I'm proud to say that I've donated 1,000 copies of my book to the Jamaica College Foundation. So it's a fundraiser, and there's an advertisement in the newspaper. So it's open to the public. So
when is it?
It's at Jamaica College at 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 17th.
All right. Thursday, 5 p.m. at Jamaica College. Did you ever go? This has the makings of a movie. This is a full-length feature film.
I don't want to brag, but they have called and they've asked the same question twice. How many people died? This is Hollywood.
Yeah.
So of course I've said, I'm not there yet. I'm just digesting this whole story here. I don't know if you realize that on the front of my book, there's a quotation here from Hollywood from Mr. Steven D'Souza, who is a screenwriter of Die Hard, 48 Hours, and Tomb Raider. And I can just read this quickly. It says, students escape the capriciousness of upperclassmen only to encounter the far more fickle jungle. The ride is like seeing Harry Potter turn into Deliverance. Whoa. So the publisher, the initial publisher, which this book was published in June, is the largest publisher in North America. They print between 25 and 50 million books a year. And they also printed the Harry Potter series. So there's a direct connection.
And that's a lead company.
But because I have most of the photographs in here and illustrations are in color, I didn't want but they're only publishing in black and white, so I didn't want my friends and family to see those books. So I became a publisher also, and I published this book, which I have here in color, in August of this year. And so you can go to my website. I've shipped books to Qatar, Germany, Sweden, all over the world so far. And
Are all of you alive?
we're all alive. There was one.
Well, I'm sure that encounter made you lifelong friends. Eh?
You're wrong there, because we weren't friends at all at school.
Oh, well.
Just by chance, I heard these guys. One of them was in my class, and 2 of them were buddies, and one was already working. And so, and I've all asked them for input in the book, and I've got input from some.
Yeah.
And but they were all given the opportunity, and I've used excerpts from their diaries and their, in the book. So.
This is something that definitely we should take the chance to see.
And I look forward to this.
Most definitely.
Reading this book, but seeing this in live and living color.
And
full-length feature.
And the book is available at Jamaica College as of Thursday.
Okay. All right.
All right, Mr. Haddad. Boy, I tell you.
Thursday, 5 o'clock.
One of those experiences. Now then, when we come back from the break, I'm still mind-boggled by all this. But news when we come back.
Oh, I won't be afraid just as long